Right, it's 9 o'clock, so I think we'll be keen and start on time because I know the date's been around a long time. So it's lovely to see everybody. I hope you had a really nice Christmas, New Year break. It goes far too quickly. We seem to be back at it before we know it. But welcome to another one of our mini fest events. Really pleased that you've got the time this morning to join us. Just very quickly to put today in context, today is a little bit more delivery from the Act Dev and the TAL team in response to particular requests that we've actually had from the faculties in terms of areas they actually want covered. Our next mini fest will be in March. And again, what we're going to try and do in that event is perhaps open it up to everybody a little bit more. But thank you very much for coming. I'm delighted we can kick off today with Ali joining us. Ali's been doing a lot of work during the course of the last teaching block around the digital strategy going forward, and he's going to use that as a basis for a bit of reflection and where we go next. So if I can hand over to you, and thanks for joining us.
Sure, thanks Andy, and welcome everybody. Thank you once again for inviting me to share a few ideas with colleagues in this mini fest. Today I'm going to share again some of the ideas that have emerged from the consultation that was conducted between November and December, geared towards with the purpose of gathering ideas and gathering views on what will eventually be Portsmouth Digital Success Plan. I will start sharing screen if I can. Let me just have a look. So hopefully you can see that. So welcome once again. This is roughly the structure of what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I'll start with a few objectives, which you will be familiar with because they were on the description of the blurb of the event. I'll discuss some principles. I'll let you know a bit about what we've done, what we've learned, and what we'll do with what we've learned, how you and others can be involved in this process, and what we can all expect as we move forward. There will be some interaction within the presentation and time for questions and answers at the end. So feel free to use any means, chat or simply raise your hand and ask to speak at any point. These three are the objectives that I had shared with the TEL team and with the Act Dev team. So we are going to reflect on the journey that we've been on so far. We'll look at the digital success plan in the context of other elements of the Portsmouth ecosystem. And hopefully you'll have, through this session today and the rest of today, an opportunity to share your expertise and your experience that will help us shape the plan itself. So that's where we are. As there will be some interaction, I kindly invite you to have a separate tab in your browser with that on that URL vvox.app at the top there, and enter the ID number that that you got down here. So vvox.app, and the ID number there for when the time comes, not just yet. But if you have it ready, it'll be quicker when we get to that point. Okay, a few 4 principles about the plan. It's called the Digital Success Plan, but it's really about good teaching. It is important to highlight that there are many other elements of the digital landscape within the university. Other colleagues are working on other parts of the digital plan. Namely, John Ward in IT has been working hard on various other infrastructure networks and data elements of the plan. The focus today is actually on learning and teaching. This learning and teaching should and hopefully will be aligned with the University of Portsmouth Strategy 2025 and Vision 2030, as well as the hallmarks, the graduate attributes, if you like. The plan will not be, hopefully, about pushing tech down your throat. It will not be about forcing people to use tools and then ask what was the problem to which was the solution. Hopefully, the approach will show that the digital plan will enable people to explore, enable people to expand strategies, enable people to broaden and expand the toolkit, but not force them into practices that they do not want to implement. And the fourth point there is quite significant. Digital includes, but is not limited to, online learning. Indeed, a lot of my focus and a lot of my effort and a lot of my passion is about campus-based teaching and creating learning spaces within the campus, in labs, in classrooms, in seminar rooms, in lecture halls that lend themselves to good, effective, student-centered practices. So those are the four things I wanted to kick off with. And I'd like to share now a quick slide from a paper I published ages ago now, which some of you may have seen. If you look at this slide, you've got two axes. The x-axis is physical proximity, which can be high or low, and the y-axis is synchronicity, again high or low. And when you have both on a high, so bottom left, what you've got there is a traditional campus-based face-to-face provision, which is what many universities are used to. The majority of the work is done in that format when you are a campus-based university. The top right is low proximity, low synchronicity, and that refers to mostly asynchronous distance learning. Now, the more interesting bits in today's circumstances relate to the top left and bottom right. So the top left relates to students who are currently on the campus, but are actually accessing things and taking part in things asynchronously. And that is students who may be in halls, but whose seminars and lectures have been moved to an online environment. Those elements of the learning can be accessed both in real time sometimes and asynchronously at other times. And that very much describes a lot of the experiences of students in the last teaching block, and certainly in between March and the end of the previous academic year. The bottom right relates to real-time, same-time provision for those who are geographically dispersed. So that relates to real-time Zoom or Google Meet or Skype conversations that can happen on a one-to-one basis as well as in groups. So it is interesting to review something that is as old as that paper, and yet we can tweak that and see how the COVID scenario that we've been through can still map onto this, and we find ourselves with lots, hundreds, if not thousands of students on campus, yet doing a lot of the asynchronous work that we prepared for them, that we're supporting them with. What we've done since I joined the university in September, and soon after that we started working on various aspects of what will eventually become the digital success plan. So we have been looking at literature, including sector reports, grey literature, and the strategies and plans from other institutions. We've run a consultation, as many of you will be aware. Indeed, many of you will have taken part in that between November and December. And I have, with the help of others, generated a summary of those contributions, the highlights of which I'm going to be sharing with you today. What we've learned from that is that there are multiple views on what our plan at Portsmouth could include, how it can be presented, what the real scope could be, and what hopefully the plan will help us to achieve. So what I've got there on that slide is an example from the University of Greenwich, where they created a very interesting equivalent to the plan, and I invite you to have a look at that if you have the opportunity. Far from being a long document that gathers dust on a shelf, it is a fairly concise poster-looking plan with explicit alignment with the main university strategy, and that has a sentence at the top, which is that one that you've got there, that hopefully captures its main thrust and its main purpose. We've looked at many others, and those who took part in the consultation will remember that we looked at various other strategies, some fairly traditional, some quite wide-ranging, covering all sorts of digital elements from across the spectrum. Some are very, very focused on the learning and teaching side of things. Others include more of an element of research. There's all sorts of approaches to this, and we really need to find the one that works for us as an institution. I asked, as part of this consultation, a number of questions of people, and I divided them into two big groups of questions, if you like. I invited colleagues to share with me and with other colleagues what they thought should be the overall objectives of the digital success plan. And I gave them pretty much the freedom to express that in any way they wanted. So what I've got here in the next couple of slides is a summary of 6 of the top objectives that people have come up with. And I'm going to share that with you now. And I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things with that. So this is a summary of the 6 top things that people highlighted as potential objectives of the plan. A few words highlighted there. To enable teaching and learning without limits, to unite the cross-city campus so that it feels like a single learning environment. The third is about consistency across provision. The fourth is about fulfilling educational and civic responsibilities. The fifth one is about being a digitally fluent university. And the sixth one is about empowering learners, about boosting engagement and personalization. So those are the themes, if you like, that the objectives covered. So I'm going to ask you now, with a little bit of help from Tom Langston perhaps, but I'm going to ask you to look at the 6 objectives and go to the vivox.app link at the top there and enter that ID that I gave you in an earlier slide, if you can, so you can start answering this. The question is, out of these 6, which would be your top 3? You can choose 2 or you can choose 1, up to 3. So I'll give you a minute to make your selections. Thank you, colleagues. We've got around about 10, 11 responses. I'll be closing the poll in about 15 seconds. Okay. Thanks very much. Let's have a look at what people thought. Right, looks like objective 6 is the one that received the highest number of votes. Well, it also looks like objectives 2 and 4 received the lowest number of votes. And I'll be asking you to share with the group some of those ideas a little later. Before we do that, however, this is just your votes on existing ideas that other colleagues had shared previously. I'm now going to ask you to write and share one objective of your own. So again, using the same vvox.app link and the same ID, I would like you to add your own objective if you can. Oops.
If you go back to your slide, you hadn't cleared out the.
Apologies. Yes. One more back.
Yeah, back one more. Right, forward one. Now press delete to clear the slide. Now it'll start the poll.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Oh. Did I click something?
I think you closed it.
Did I? I was clicking on a different screen. All right. So back again. Is it open, Tom?
No, not yet.
No? No, it was open.
Yeah, you'll probably have to clear it out again.
All right.
So forward one. Delete to clear. Start the poll. There you go.
Apologies, colleagues. I'll give you another minute to complete.
For those that are writing, you will need to click send at the bottom of your screen to make sure that the response is recorded.
Our last few seconds before we close it. Right. Anyone else typing, please hit send in the next 5 seconds. Thank you. So I'll close the poll now. Hopefully, he says. And
drag the other screen on.
Yeah.
There's the results for you.
Yeah. Okay, let me just bring this across. So, colleagues, this is what you've come up with. We've got 16 responses. So what you're looking at the moment is the list of your answers, and I would like to first thank people for taking part and contributing an objective, but I would also like to invite any one of these contributors to share a few words with your mic on about your objective and why you contributed that. Anyone would like to have a go? No volunteers? Okay. Let's take a couple of your contributions here, and it is very helpful for me to have that input, which we can, with your permission, build onto the development of the plan. There's one there on screen at the moment to support staff minimize stress in their online teaching and learning journey. The one below is about innovation. The one below is that equipping students. So clearly there are different focus. There's a different focus for some of those which relate to students, some relate to staff, some relate to graduates. And I would be particularly keen to hear from you if you'd like to expand on the rationale behind some of these things. So one more opportunity. Would anyone like to share a rationale for contributing an objective?
Ali, I'm happy to make a contribution to get the ball rolling if that's okay with everybody. Can you hear me?
Go for it, Val.
Okay, thank you. The one that I put in was about enabling or empowering people involved in teaching, learning and assessment. And here I mean tutors and all those others who support students to feel empowered to use appropriate digital technology as a part of their pedagogy. And my thought here is that ultimately the work we do in learning and teaching is about relationships with students. So any success plan that focuses only on what students can do, I think overlooks a very, very important partner in that process, which is all of those staff who are involved in any way with making the student experience and learning a productive one.
Thank you, Valerie. I totally concur with you. That's why I put in mind the stress and the staff's journey in learning how to use these approaches, because they all start in very different places.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If I can just go, Ale?
Yeah, sure, Stephen.
So I was focused more on the student. I quite agree with Val and Hedda that you can't focus on the students without having that contribution for staff. But I think it's critically important for the success of the university over the long term that we do produce students who are confident in their ability to use technology to continue to learn throughout their career, because I think the one thing that we can confidently predict is that the future will change quite rapidly, and we need to produce people who are resilient, who can continue to learn, who are not focused on one particular technology, but understand how to pick up technologies, use them, drop them when necessary, and pick up new technologies.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Well, thank you once again, everyone, for that, which we will save safely and hopefully incorporate into the development of the plan. In the second part of the consultation, I moved from the adding of your own objective to what people would perhaps want to see on page 1 of the plan. So once you've looked at that kind of the top bit and turn to page 1, what is it that the plan should not miss on that page? And that created a very interesting exchange of ideas with lots of comments on the side of the Google Doc, with lots of comments on the comments. And what I've got here is a selection of 12 themes that that people identified as critical to appear on page 1. So what I'm going to do in the next few slides, I'm going to show you the exact, roughly the expanded version of each of the 12. And then I'm going to ask you to do a similar exercise to what we've done with the objective. I'm going to ask you to pick some of these, and then I'm going to ask you to add your own in the same way as we did with the objective. So let me first share with you the expanded version of these topics. The first one had to do with a digital pedagogy first, or digital by default. And as I said at the start, that does not mean distance learning or online learning only. Digital by design or digital by default also encompasses campus-based provision and any combination and flexibility built in between modes of study. So for face-to-face, for campus-based, at the University of Portsmouth, it's very much relates to blended and connected. That's what we do. That's our baseline. That's not something we do on top of our teaching jobs. That is our teaching job. And there is an idea that has been discussed about including within the award map, one online module per course. That's, as I understand it, being discussed at the moment, and that would further our ability to design digital by default across different modes of study. The second element, the second topic discussed was the risk friendliness, where pedagogic experimentation and innovation is encouraged, including failure. And of course, the counter argument to this could be, well, that's all very good, but students have only got one go at this. So if we mess up, if we generate experiences that are not conducive to successful learning or a pleasant learning experience, then that's the one go that that the students have had. I would say that being a risk-friendly academic culture does not and should not be taken to mean encouraging the taking of unnecessary risks. What that means is enabling people and encouraging people to experiment and to bring students with them on that experimentation journey, always with a plan B in their back pockets, so that something may fail, something does fail, you can revert back to something that doesn't. And as long as you're transparent and as long as you're open about that with your colleagues and with your students, then that risk friendliness can be encouraged, can be promoted, and can work as a lever for professional enhancement for all of us. The third element on page 1 of the plan here is a deliberate focus on digital technologies to enable high quality, interactive, inclusive, and participative on and off campus learning, with mobility and flexibility built in a way that challenges students and staff. This one is pretty self-explanatory in all its content. It goes to the heart of learning design. It goes to the heart of how our courses are structured, how our courses are run, how our courses engage and promote inclusion. The next element is slightly more serious, if you like, in terms of identity. and it boils down to a pedagogic unique selling point. What is it about the way we do our learning and teaching at Portsmouth that distinguishes, that differentiates us from other places? Is it just about student-centered? No, it's got to be more than that. Is it about digitally enabled? No, it's got to be more than that. So what is it that makes us different? Is it about personalization? Is it about the way we teach and assess and align things? What is it that makes us good? In one word, what is our USP in relation to pedagogic identity? And that is not an easy one to answer, but it is an element that the consultation highlighted as key, and the digital plan is an opportunity to address this. Short, mid, and long-term view. At this point, very much the mid and the long-term view, one would hope, would be a post-COVID scenario for learning and teaching across modes of study, but a post-COVID scenario. and the plan, this person claimed, had to include the 3 bits of that: the now, the near future, and the long-term view. This one is about digital literacy, competence, and fluency. The view is that maybe overall we need to develop digital capabilities and skills of all staff and students, and perhaps one could also argue that literacy is not enough. We've got to move beyond literacy into competence and fluency. perhaps an important one in terms of the human resource, the human capital of the university, an acknowledgement of the learning designer role, which is an academic post, which is a role that sits on a par with a lecturer or senior lecturer and operates in the learning designer arena by embedding themselves, working with academic course teams to essentially scale up practices in the digital domain. That's another interesting element of the consultation. The next one is about perhaps a little bit of stick, if you like, embedding mandatory training and development in people's PDRs. And it was the way I understood it, how it was presented in the consultation documents, was very much a centralized view of doing that at scale to embed training across the entire staff body. The next one is about language. It's about how we present the plan to different target audiences. So in this case, if the plan is going to be read by students as well, is the language, is the terminology used appropriate to them? The 10th one is a commitment to co-creation. The 10th one is very much about engaging students, not just in consuming stuff, but in creating it, in working with us in an established approach to learning design that takes student input as a significant ingredient in the production, in the design, and in the assessment process across the board. This one is interesting because it queries whether students want or need innovation in their courses. So that's a good one to think about. Do we really want to push the boundaries here, or are students happy as they are? And this person finally suggested an operational plan, which is, of course, what the strategy should have as well, and a workflow for the implementation of digital learning. So those were the expanded versions of the topics that people contributed in the consultation. So here's a summary again. And I will be asking you in the same way, with the same Vivox link and code, to pick the top 3, and then after that I will be asking you to think of one of your own. So if you're ready, if you go to the same link, the same code, you should be able to see now the question. So you can have 12, pick up to 3. I'll be closing the poll in about 1 minute. Okay, any final responses, colleagues? We've got nearly everybody there. Closing in 10 seconds. Thank you. So that's what we got. Let's have a quick look at this. Right. Interesting that developing digital capability received a lot of votes, and interaction, inclusion, mobility, the other top bar there in that representation. Thank you. And before we comment on this, let's have a look at your own. If you again go back to your poll, this is your chance to share one topic that may or may not have been included in the above that you'd like page 1 of the plan not to miss. So this is your chance again to contribute your own. Please remember to hit send at the bottom of the screen once you've typed your response. I'll be closing this in 1 minute. Any final contributions? Ten seconds. Okay, thank you. Let me just drag this across. So here we got the responses. And I think this time they all fit on one screen. So I'll give you a minute to have a look at those. And may I invite anyone who would like to expand a little bit on their contribution here? Would anyone want to have a go?
Yeah, I'll do a quick one.
Justin? Yeah.
Sore throat. Yeah, I just thought about the in relation to the plan, it should show where we are, not necessarily on a timeline, but give some context of where we are in relation to these things and where we're going. Because obviously, it's sort of, you know, using an analogy, if we want to say, I want to get to Mars, that should take on board that, you know, that's like a very, very long journey for us. Where if we just want to get to Spain, arguably that's something we can do in a straightforward way. But for some of these topics, we're quite far away. Some are very close, and some probably quite arguably totally different for different people. So I just thought that might be contextualized.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you. Anyone else?
Ali, I'll stick in if I may.
Go for it, Andy.
I think the one I would mind, I think it's everybody's got to be on the same boat and part of the same journey, and we can't afford to leave anybody behind. I'll save you an analogy in January, but the notion of we got people that are way ahead and getting on with it, and we've still got a minority of colleagues that perhaps don't feel confident in the process. So it's about how we work together to make sure we're all traveling forward at the same pace and everybody feels confident to actually engage. And I think this idea of a risk environment where people are encouraged to experiment, I think is really important. But at the same time, a little bit of perhaps the stick just to develop some of that consistency in terms of the overall approach.
Thanks, Andy. Well, and thank you all for your contribution again, which we've saved here. And I'd like now to move on to the final bit of the session, just what we'll do with what we've learned. So the next steps are forming a digital success plan advisory group, which is now about to happen. That group will have the remit of contributing to the draft of the plan, review alignment and consistency with vision, strategy and hallmarks. It will also have to review consistency and alignment with the learning and teaching plan that Harriet is working on, and other plans, including, as I said before, the IT plan that John Ward is working on, and the digital elements of that. We would then, or the group would then, gather feedback and refine the draft and then submit it for further review and approval. So that's the next steps. How can you and how can other colleagues across the university be involved? One way to do that, and I know this is already happening, is to discuss the digital plan at away days or faculty events or school events, and then feedback through the various channels. Share your input and your team's input with members of the advisory group and with myself, and in any way that you think is appropriate. And of course, provide evidence in any form. That evidence could come in the shape of your own practice, the practice of colleagues around you, things that in your experience have proved successful, things that haven't. All of those things are very valuable to the development of this. Finally, I would like to invite you for the final time to contribute 3 key words that you think should be prominent in the digital success plan. So 3 key words I'm inviting you to type into the same Vvox poll, and they will start appearing here in a word cloud. So just 1 minute for 3 words. Okay, last 15 seconds. Any final responses? Thank you. Closing the poll now. That's the outcome. Inclusive is the clear winner in terms of size and therefore number of occurrences in your contributions. Lots of other interesting words there: innovative, digital, flexible, support, accessible, inclusivity. Very, very, very good. Thank you, colleagues, very much for that contribution again. What the university can expect in 2021, I would say the starting point, a realistic but bold digital success plan with input and support from faculties, services across the institution. And with that, I'd like to conclude and give Andy as host the chance to invite some questions and comments and further discussions in the 8 or 9 minutes we've got left. So over to you, Andy.
Ali, thank you very much, and thank you for all your hard work. It's from the discussions that we've had in your consultancy sessions prior to that has really come on, and there's some fantastic headlines in there. I'm sure everybody would agree that's definitely heading in the right direction. So thank you for that. We've got about 5 minutes, colleagues. I need to disappear because I'm running the next one. So has anybody got any particular questions that they'd like to throw at Ali, or any comments or observations? Justin, I can see your hand up. Should we start with you?
A dead easy, quick one. But just to say, I think most teaching staff are going to be fairly overloaded. So any sort of, planning or the next steps probably ought to realistically not have much traction until kind of after Easter. I imagine that's probably next time. I don't know. Well, maybe later for assessment. Actually, maybe June's a good time to breathe for air. But just a point.
Thank you, Justin. Valerie, if we take yours in the chat, what is the timeline plan for the production of the plan, Ali?
Well, that's linked to Justin's point, isn't it? It's the idea is to have the plan ready, not necessarily approved, but the draft ready this academic year. So by the summer is the plan. And I hope that is doable. I hope that gives us enough time to further consult, to circulate, to discuss it, and so forth. I fully take on board Justin's point, which reflects and echoes the concerns I've also heard from many other colleagues in terms of commitment, time available to contribute and to discuss. So we will see how that bit goes. But I will do my best to have this done by the summer.
Anybody else? Quiet bunch this
Very
morning, Ali, I
quiet.
think.
Right. I would like to say, Andy, that if anyone would like a one-to-one conversation with me about this, any aspect of this, do not hesitate to drop me a line, give me a call, and we'll have a conversation about that. I very much value your input into this, as I've tried to show in today's presentation. I want to bring your contributions to the fore. Show people that those voices are being heard and acted upon, and I would like that to continue with the dialogue with all of you and with other colleagues. So if you have no immediate questions now, fine, but please feel free to approach me if other contributions spring to mind. So with that, I think we can conclude the first part of the Minifest for today. Andy, is that correct?
We can, Ali. Thank you very much for your contribution. It's very much appreciated. And just welcome other colleagues to dip in and out of sessions that are running mainly this morning till about lunchtime. And if you can't get to anything today, because I know people are busy with marketing things, everything has been and will be recorded, and we will get it up onto the Minifest website as soon as we can, hopefully by the end of the week. So there's no pressure. It is being recorded, but if you're able to come along and chip in, it would be very nice to see you all. But again, thank you for coming this morning. And again, I hope everybody is well and has a good semester. But again, ActDev and TEL are here to support anything that you need in the short term. So please don't hesitate to get in touch.
My particular thanks to you, Andy, and to Tom Langston for his huge support in the preparation of this. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll speak to you soon.